Native peoples have always been resilient. We've adapted to a changing world, a world where we've almost been erased on numerous occasions, but we're still here. We are at the site of one of the largest massacres of Native Americans in the history of our country, and nobody knows about it. The Bear River Massacre doesn't trap us in death. As we tell the stories of these people, as we remember their sacrifice, it allows us to build a resiliency that keeps us moving on and moving forward. That first year, there were 20 pioneers. The next year, there were more. Pretty soon, what was once great wide open fields and wild grasses and seeds of every kind now had fences and cattle. Just those few short 8 years, the resources were completely gone. One thing you've got to realize, though, that Native Americans didn't have any concept of personal property. If a Shoshone family was starving and there was a man out there that had 3 cattle, you would take one. I think our people begged for food. I think they starved. And I think they borrowed the resource from others who had, because that's the way they lived as a community. And so 2 different groups of people, 2 different lifestyles. And at the end, something had to give. And what gave was the massacre at Bear River. It was here at this site on January 29th in 1863 that tragedy occurred. Colonel Patrick Edward Connor and his California Volunteer troops from Camp Douglas, Utah, attacked the sleeping Indian village in the early morning hours of the day. So just across the valley, there's a set of trees, a big clump of trees over there. That would have been Connor's overlook. They came down the hill just below the trees. They forded the river real close to that location, then did a frontal attack on the village, which would have been up against the bluff over there. There would have been 70 lodges spread out along that area. And it was decided that they would take 2 groups and flank the Shoshones. One group came up around this way. The other group went around the other way to get behind the village and flank them. And then they pushed the Shoshones to the river. After about 4 hours at the conclusion of that, more than 450 Shoshones had lost their life. 2/3 of that number, we believe, being women and children. Most all of the Shoshones were killed in this field right below us, down where those cattle are right now. That's where the majority of the 450 bodies lie today. The story of the Bear River Massacre isn't for the faint of heart. It isn't a story that we feel good about after we've heard it. But it's a story that we can learn from. I've been coming here for probably 60 years with a grandmother who was brought here by her grandfather, who was actually here during the massacre. It's a family tragedy, but it's a family story of survival and adaptation and resiliency, and I'm proud to be a part of it. That's why it's so important to me that we learn from these things, that we talk about them, not in a judgmental way, but just talk about them in a way that we can learn from each other. Let's honor the people that were here. Let's honor their stories and honor their legacies, but make sure that we learn from past history and we don't repeat it again. And what can we do together now to make this world a better place? Because that needs to be the conversation going forward.